Hi, everybody. How's it going? Welcome. This is what happens when you break the rules. I'll give you this one and I'll yell.
How about this one? Okay.
Yeah.
See. Yes.
Now we're talking.
Back to rule breaking. Let's do all of that.
Yeah. And if you think the irony of having someone who's written a guidebook about drinking beer in Chicago, sitting here talking with someone who quit drinking while writing her own memoir, is lost on anyone on the stage, it most certainly is not.
I already said I'm buying a copy of his book for my cousins because it's we're gonna do this.
So my history with Margo goes back to I went to a performance at the Ryman Theater, and Margo was not headlining there, and they said, and now introducing Margo Price, and I about lost my shit. And following that, I saw you at Farm Aid in 2019. I am wearing I don't know if you noticed the t-shirt, which is a little bit like wearing the concert t-shirt to the band that you're going to see, which is thoroughly uncool, but that decision's been made. And you killed it, and I saw that you were writing a book, and I knew that I had to get you here somehow. So it is my pleasure to be sitting here on the stage with you this evening. Thank you very much for being here. The name of the book is Maybe We'll Make It. And it's interesting to me that it's a memoir of your life, obviously. It's a long book, and almost the entire focus is it's not so much on your childhood. You spend like 24 pages on that. It's not on the awesome things that happened after you got signed to your record label. It is everything in between. And it is honest, and it is raw, and it took you a long time to make this, didn't it?
It did. I am one of those stupid people who didn't get a ghostwriter. I worked on this book for about 4.5 years. Yeah.
And talk to me about the process of, you've been writing songs almost your entire life. How did you find the process of writing a book, even though it's a book about yourself? How was that different from your normal process?
Well, about 500 pages and a lot of ambiguity was lost. And I really got into a good habit of waking up every morning and going to a coffee shop, and I would go sit and write for about 4 to 6 hours. And really, I started this whole book when I found myself pregnant in 2018, and I had just got my career off the ground, and then, here I was knocked up. And I was kind of scared that the ride was over, but I also was just wanting to get down to all of the details from that time that my husband and I did struggle, because I knew that, over time I was going to lose a lot of those details, memories, and specific things. So it was just something to occupy my time, and some sick form of therapy.
The language is very interesting, though, because when you sit down to write lyrics, you're in a different headspace. You're thinking a different way. You're thinking probably more poetically. Was it hard to sit down and write this in the style that you wrote it, or does it just happen?
No, I edited the book for a very long time, and I would kind of go for walks in the morning, and I would be thinking about certain passages that I had written and how I needed to go back and and make it better. I really wanted it to be the best book it could be. So when you look at the first draft, it was 500 pages, no chapters, no ending. I was still drinking and very disorganized. And then, I had, an editor come in. Naomi Huffman was absolutely crucial in forming what you saw today. And she trimmed the fat and helped me decide what was important to keep.
Did you, when you started this in 2018, was it your intent to put this out as a book, or did you just want to record the things that you'd been through, the things that had happened to you? Was it a personal thing then, and did it become something that you wanted the world to see later, or was it always the intent to share this with everybody?
I think, yeah, I didn't really think it was going to be out as quickly as it was, because I was.
You thought maybe it would, like, you'd put it on a shelf, you'd come back to it.
Yeah,
in
I kind of
20 years.
thought like, wait for a couple people to die, and then. Then Jessica Hopper, a fellow Chicagoan, she reached out and asked to read the manuscript, and she's really responsible for encouraging me to put it out now, and just told me like I can write another book later, and and then we'll have to do some backtracking with some things I skipped.
It's interesting that I've seen a lot of people say something to the effect of like, why are you writing a memoir now? You're early in your career. I hope you're earlier in your career, selfishly speaking. Why did you want to put this out now? And what made you say this doesn't belong on a shelf? I need this to be in the world in this time of my life. Other than just saying this is great, you need to make it happen.
Yeah, I think I want people to take me seriously as a writer. Even with the songwriting, I feel like sometimes as a woman, it is difficult to get people to see you as an intellectual. And, it's like a lot of people just describe me as like a country singer, and that's fine. I'm that. But I've always really had dreams of writing more than just songs, whether it's poetry, screenplays, maybe even fiction at some point. And I've tried before to write like a collection of short stories, and then my computer crashed, and then I got distracted with the songwriting again. So I'm truthfully a little glad that COVID came so I could flush this thing out, just holed up in my house going crazy, and something to focus on.
As someone who has had that hard drive disappear and you lose that, it's the stuff that comes back the easiest is the stuff that is worth keeping. I think I don't know if that's what you found, or if you just said, I'll come back to that later. I've got other stuff to do.
Yeah, I still have. I got it. I retrieved that at one point, and it's just been sitting in a chest for 8 or 9 years. But yeah, maybe it'll be unearthed at some point. I knew with this though, it was exciting me enough that I felt, yeah, I can get this out now. I mean, I have had some haters on the internet say like, you're too young to write a book. And I'm like, but I feel old. Okay. Read the book and you can tell me if I should have wrote it or not, or if I was too young. I don't know.
Your years have been busier than most, I would say. And I was trying to explain your book to someone. I think it was my mom. And
no, sorry, Mom.
Well, I eventually ended up explaining it like, if you have a child that wants to go into the music industry, you should give them this book and then let them see if they really, really want to do it. Because like we said, this is not spending a long time in your childhood or kind of the recent years of your success. It is every step along the way of all the things that happen to you, good, bad, and ugly. When you were working through this process, I was really struck by the detail. You have some really specific things in there that I would have a hard time remembering if it's been a while. And I wonder, how did you track that? How did you get into that headspace? Do you journal? Do you just kind of like keep notepads at home? How did you go back and access all of that?
Well, oddly enough, Jeremy and I had filmed a lot of our past life, and we always had kind of a camcorder around, and we were just making home movies. I do journal, and I have songwriting notebooks, and sometimes there'll be a little entry, and maybe like a specific show I wanted to remember, or maybe like a crazy poem after a tour that touches on a lot of different things. But I have to, shout out my bandmates for helping me remember things, and of course Jeremy for helping me remember a lot of the details and dates and things like that. I always say it's kind of like piecing together a scene of a crime when you like go on tour and you're like, okay, we were in the Midwest, and then like people will start throwing in, everybody remembers a different detail, so to collectively. But a lot of it, what I write about was the stuff that was most vivid to me, like the first tour that I ever took in the Winnebago. Like, that stands out. And I've done like lots and lots of touring on the tour bus, and I've opened for Willie Nelson and Chris Stapleton and all these heroes of mine multiple times. But that trip specifically, I could remember dialogue that was had. I could remember a lot about it because it was the first time.
Yeah, there's something about that just imprints onto your brain. It just stitches it in a different way. And but you bring up talking to your bandmates. Did you like interview people about your own life, like in the process of making this happen?
No, I did ask my bandmates to each kind of help me fill in a couple blanks, and I did. I think my husband got the brunt end of everything. I took him on this trip to Santa Fe, and we holed up in a hotel room, and I just like read him the book for like 3 days. And I was like, is this better? Is this better? Is this better? And it's
practice for the audiobook.
Yeah. Yeah. And we sat there and went through a lot of stuff together. Which was, there were times when writing this book, it was, it got emotional because there were things that I had buried, and the first draft of the book looks a lot different than the last because there were things that I was holding back, and there was, a lot of discussion of, am I going to put this in? Is this going to hurt this person? Is this important to tell the story? And that was kind of how I made my decisions. Ultimately, if somebody in my past doesn't like something that I said about them in the book, well, then they should have made different decisions.
I have had that thought about like so many bad parents that get called out by people, and it's just like, well, if you didn't want that to happen, then you shouldn't have made a celebrity child who gets to talk about these things. It's interesting to me. I just love the idea of you guys holding up in a motel in the mountains and just audience of one. Here's everything here. It's all here. But to your point, when you write a memoir, you're not just writing your own story. You're also writing the story of the people that were around you. And when you put something on a page, people become characters that live on in a different way than is in your head. Is there anything that ended up on the page and you went back and looked at that and was like, wow, that came out differently than what I expected it to? Because I have something in mind, but I want to see where your head goes.
What were you
no, you go first.
No, I don't know. I was going to say, I don't think necessarily anything came out too different, but there are like a lot of stories that I wish in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I should have included that. Like, there was an event where Jeremy got his ass beat really bad, and he got beat up outside of this place called Melrose Billiards in Nashville. It was just terrible how bad he got beat up. And I was like, how did I miss putting that story in? That was kind of a big thing that happened for us. But you just can't write everything down. But what was the event that you were going to say?
Again, music industry, you have a child. That maybe we'll put that in the second one. But I was thinking about the he's not a character, he's a person, but Clayton ends up it's not like a plotted thing, but this person comes into your life and is not really what you expect and hangs around and then pops back up in an unexpected way. At least I did not see it coming. And I guess you didn't either.
Oh, we did not. And this just goes to show kids, like, watch out who you meet on Craigslist or on the internet in general, because then that will date, where the book kind of takes place in that decade. we met a lot of people on Craigslist. A lot of them, they were around for a long time. They were good people, but this one guy, he was so scary. And yeah, he followed us. He haunted us.
He did. He popped up in Los Angeles, and part of the book you talk about how, you meet people in the music industry, and there's a lot of talk. There's not a lot of follow up, and this was one of the dudes that you thought just talking to a lot of game and getting ahead of himself, and then there he is. He was backing it up a little bit.
Yeah, watch out. There's sharks everywhere. There's Hunter S. Thompson likes to say pimps and thieves.
I also love the part in the book, since you brought up Craigslist. I love the part where you kind of agonize about getting like an email address and like joining social media and things like that. And that kind of like speaks to where you started. This is a world that's kind of like just MySpace at this point. And now you're fully immersed in social media. In terms
Dream
of
about getting out of it every day, though, secretly, right? I'm like, I'm just going to disappear like Bobby Gentry, and but got to promote this book first. Yeah, that was how it was when we first started. It was still like, you would burn a CD, you would take your demos, you would take your little homemade CD in and give them to venues, around, well, of course, around Nashville, but all around the country. And we finally relented and joined the rest of the world.
Do you think the world is better in that respect, in terms of the ability to reach people with words or with videos or with anything, as someone who writes songs for a living?
I think it's a double-edged sword, like, anything that is really powerful. And there's so many good things about it that you can kind of have your own, everybody has their own magazine, and you can paint yourself in any kind of light that you would like. And it's definitely helpful in a lot of ways, but I think that it's hurtful in the ways that it kind of makes everything have no value, because we're just, force-fed content all day long, and it's devalued art into the way that people are calling music and photography and all these beautiful art forms that we used to have. Now it's all just content. And I'm not trying to sound like an old person that's like, damn the technology, but really, damn it, sometimes. I also just think of young kids, especially young girls that are growing up today and have to look at all these, filtered faces and just what it's doing to our psyche. I know that it's not healthy for me, and I just, want people to be careful, and just also try to remember that living in the real world is intangible things like books and records and photography and films. Don't forget about them.
I want to kind of look at the book in a chronology. I'm interested in the, like, you have so many things that happen in the first 24 pages. You've broken your nose twice. You've had your first beer. You've graduated from or you've gone to college.
Dropped out of college
and moved to Nashville. I feel like other writers in a memoir, and maybe this is something that ended up on the cutting room floor because you just wanted to get into other stuff, but it strikes me that it's a really, really formative time of one's life, and there's not much there. Were you in a big hurry to get done with childhood? Did you want to just kind of get through that and get on with what you knew was going to be the rest of your life?
I think, again, just wanting to protect people that are still around, and people in my family. And, I tried to at least add in kind of why I am the way that I am now, which is, I had my first beer at the age of 12. I was, affected by addiction as a young kid, but I also just, I couldn't delve completely into it. And so that was part of the reason. And also because I did want it to be focused around the music and around the chase of, of what it was, um, for me to get here and to be able to do this for a living.
It is a chase. I mean, it is almost a heist. Getting in and making your way into this well guarded establishment and managing to get in and get out with what you need and living to tell the tale. You moved to Nashville at 19, dropped out of school, moved to Nashville. And I wonder, as someone, you knew you wanted to make music. Lots of people go to New York or Los Angeles. There must have been some sort of pull to Nashville beyond just, I know you had some family there. Like, what was that thing that really got you down there and you knew that's where you wanted to plant your flag?
Well, I was really dead set on New York or Los Angeles just because I wasn't really turned on by anything that I was like hearing out of country radio in those days. And so, yeah, it was my parents were really scared for me to go to New York and, go far away because I was their firstborn and I would not know I still can't drive in Los Angeles. Geez. So yeah, it was just, when I got there though, I explored the city and there was so much more than what I thought was just on the surface. I had kind of been judging a book by its cover as well. And when I got started going out to those like open mics and like really getting focused on the song and being focused on that, that really excited me. And I thought like, hey, maybe this is the place where I want to be, because I did want to tell stories.
Yeah. How many people here have been to Nashville? I see a lot of hands.
Nice, yeah.
How many people have been to Nashville and gone beyond like the 2 blocks around like Lower Broadway? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Very good. Cause that's what most of us see, most of us see that. And I think a lot of us have something similar where we fall in love with the idea of a place that loves music in its own weird way. Even if you're downtown hearing Sweet Home Alabama for the 37th time that afternoon.
Yeah. You just got to go to the place where they're playing the like Tammy Wynette, Layla's and Roberts. Those are my favorites.
Amen. How long did you start there too? Or did you immediately start kind of finding your own tribe?
Yeah, I didn't make my way down to Broadway until kind of later, honestly. I mean, I did busk there during CMA Fest, and that was the experience. It was quite the experience. I mean, I kind of found myself in this area called the Rock Block, which is like Elliston Place, and there was Exit In and The End. There were these 2 kind of clubs, and there was a guitar shop, and there was a vintage store. I liked that area. I liked the Springwater, and then of course we started infiltrating East Nashville, and that kind of became our home base, and we finally felt that was the spot that was good for us. But it was a long time of me going in and out. There was like this, I talk about this place in the book called the Hall of Fame Lounge, and I was definitely the youngest person in there, but it was incredible. It was like all these older cats that have been writing since like the 70s, and I'm like, this is where I want to be. I'm gonna hang out here and like learn a thing or two.
Nashville is not the only special place in the book to you, though. I get the feeling that Colorado has a really big piece of your heart.
It does.
It makes up a lot of the book, and everybody needs to buy the book and read the whole thing. But talk to me about the decision to you have this relationship with Nashville where you love it, you hate it, you have to get away, you have to come back, you have things that you need to do. I still
feel this way. I love it so much, but I have issues with it, and I see it changing in a lot of ways for the better, but I also still find myself incredibly frustrated by the gatekeepers and the people who think that it needs to remain this, this one way. I'm still very much feel like an outsider there at times.
And that's part of what drove you to go hang out in Colorado for a little while, right? I mean, can you talk about that time of your life specifically? I just find it a lot of the book is your battle, against all of these things that are set up to get in your way. And there's the part of the book in Colorado is written so much more freely. I just got the feeling that you had a really good time looking back on that and reliving that compared to a lot of other things that make up the book.
Yeah, Colorado does have a sweet spot in my heart, and I felt like that was just such a refuge for us. We just kind of went out there and focused on writing songs again and cleared our minds. Nothing was going, good for us in Nashville, and it just felt like we were spinning our wheels. So I had a whole yard sale and sold everything and just lived out there. And it was also just the freedom to not have to work a dead end job that I hated, because we found a loophole where we could go like busk on Pearl Street, and then we would like busk until we had enough money for a bottle of wine and a pizza or something, and then we would go live in this tent. And Jeremy knew about this secluded camping spot, and it was just really it was a special time.
How long did that last? Was it felt like months, but
we were there for months, yeah. And then he had to go back and help his father, who had been sick. And then I convinced my best friend to come out there with me. And she was real good at finding these cute guys that had like cabins or places we could stay. Thanks, Kate. And so, yeah, we were hustling, and then her and I would go sing on Pearl Street too. And I've just got this photo of us that actually I wish it was in the book, but we're just both standing there barefoot in our peasant dresses, and we make some good money on Pearl Street. Now I think you have to go get like a license if you want to busk, or you have to get a permit. But in those days, it was just all up for grabs.
There's nothing beautiful that can't be ruined by paperwork.
That's right.
After that, you touched on something that struck me in the book. You mentioned parents, and you mentioned Jeremy's parents, but your parents, they pop up pretty regularly, and it's something that I feel is a very honest part of the book, because so many people want to sell you these stories of, I moved out of my house and I hated my parents and I did everything on my own and I had nobody's help, and now I'm this big successful superstar and I'm awesome. But your parents came up, they helped you out a lot. You leaned on them for you to come home and spend time recharging. And I think that's such an important thing that to have in this book, because it speaks to the idea of just like a little bit of privilege, like where you had people that you could at least come home to and spend a week on the couch, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they liked it. After a certain point, it was like, wow, 26, okay. But they were supportive, and even when I found myself dealing with my misdemeanor and found myself in the jailhouse, that was my first call was to my dad, so I could get some help with money. Such a loser. But yeah, they really were there for me. And at times, I think it was just, if they weren't thrilled about it, it just was because it was really hard for them to see it. I mean, we lived in squalor. I think, Jeremy's parents and my parents, they just wanted better for us, and they helped out when they could.
Let's go back turn back the clock to 19 and tell me about the conversation of saying, I'm not going back to school. I'm going to go live this dream.
Yeah, there was definitely some debate. They wanted me to finish college. They wanted me to get the degree because that is the safe thing to do. I mean, at least at one point in America it was. Now it's, drives us all into debt also. And there's a million problems with the system. But they they said, okay, if this is what you want, we will support you. And so, yeah, they helped me tie everything down on the flatbed trailer. And like I say in the book, we rolled in looking like the Beverly Hillbillies.
So I looked at the book. The name of the book is Maybe We'll Make It. It is a phrase that does come up in the process of writing the book. But what I noticed is that it doesn't come up until you're halfway through the book, until you finally have this thought of like, maybe this could be a career. Is that, A, was that planned? And, or B, was that just kind of like prior to that moment, you're on tour, you're on the Winnebago, and you have this thought, maybe we'll make it, you know, and before that point, did you think about the life you were living as something that could lead to success down the road, or was it just about the art and the life that you wanted to live?
Well, of course, I always hoped that, you know, I would be able to find somewhat of a wider audience just that could sustain us from, you know, again, not working menial jobs. But I I think I'd be lying if I said I didn't always want success or I didn't always dream of it. I still have to go back and remind myself that the real reason I do it, though, is just because I love to sing and because I love to write songs. And I think that the most beautiful, pure thing in the world is when somebody just plays music just because they want to. And, you know, like you said, when you bring paperwork into anything, you know, you can just ruin stuff. I go back to this study often that I read about where it was like preschool children, they give them paints, they give them paintbrushes, the children learn to paint, and then they're loving it, everything's great, and then the adults start to give them gold stars, and they're like, "Oh, cool," and they keep painting, they're doing their paintings, they're ready to get the gold star, and then they take away the star, and then the children stop painting. And I think that success in doing things like that, that can prevent people from just making art. I think everybody should absolutely make art all the time and not worry about the accolade. And had Jack White not picked me out of obscurity, I think I would still be playing and singing occasionally. I mean, I wouldn't have as much time to do it, but yeah, I think I'll be 90 years old. I'll probably be sitting barefoot on a porch somewhere and plucking a guitar, hopefully.
You mentioned Jack White. We are in Michigan. Big part of Michigan, still to this day, has been for better part of 2 decades at this point, I think. Talk to me about, there's a great part in the book towards the end where you're coming on and you're talking to Third Man. Talk to me about how Jack entered your life.
Like a saint.
He entered your life before you knew he entered your life, though.
What do you mean by that? You mean
the scene where you're in the meeting at Third Man and you find out that Jack is
that he was listening. And I had also met him in a parking lot years and years prior, and it was like the day after he had opened for Bob Dylan at the Ryman, and he was just walking towards me, and I was about to fall over. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Jack White!" And at that point, I gave him my CD out of my purse and told him that I saw him, and we had a good conversation. He was really, really nice to me, and I don't know if he remembers that or anything, but I really don't know exactly how I got on their radar. I go back to this one Rolling Stone article. It was my very first write up in Rolling Stone. Of course, it was just on the internet. It wasn't in print, but it was a big deal for me. And it said, shared a music video of mine for Since You Put Me Down. And it just said, sounds like Jack White produced Loretta Lynn. Huh. And I always kind of wonder if that was maybe the first time they heard. But then it was just Ben Swank, who has been there forever. He came out to a show, another Detroiter. And it was just the most wild thing to ever happen to me. I had wanted to be on their label for how long had they been in town? Maybe 5 or 6 years. I had just dreamed of doing something with him. And I know other people in my life also, wanted that too. I don't know how it happened to me. I feel like I won the lottery.
And the story about how you eventually, got the nod was that you came into the office, you played a song, they liked it, you didn't realize that he was standing behind a two-way mirror.
He was in the back in the blue room. I was playing on the stage in there, and then like there's a one side you can see through because there's the lathe cutting machine and everything, but I didn't know that he was back there and he was listening because I didn't see him in the building that day.
I love that. It's so like super villainy in its own way.
Right. Yeah. They wanted to, make sure that I could sing, and then that I had more material. I played a song that day. I still have a little vinyl that I cut and played a song called Desperate and Depressed that I think that maybe sealed the deal. I was like, oh yeah, I got 10 more songs after this. Like, let's do it.
The way that you came into that world though was interesting in the respect that you walked in with a record, and you walked to a lot of places with that record, and you said, this is the record, put it out. And a lot of people came to you and they did not want you to do that, did they?
Yeah, they didn't understand what it was. And, God bless Third Man for liking things that are, maybe not as polished and maybe a little rough around the edges, but that are human. And, we recorded that album in just 3 days because we didn't have a huge budget. But I was still so proud of it. And luckily they understood what was going on because I had a year from the time that I recorded that where I just was sitting and nobody would sign it. And I was getting rejection letter after rejection letter. And here my husband had sold the car. I'd pawned my wedding ring. We'd sold a bunch of musical equipment. And I thought, like, wow, maybe this was the wrong gamble to take. But then that finally happened and everything took off like at light speed.
Yeah, there's the idea of sliding doors and what would life have been like if I made this decision or that decision. And you use the phrase, it's used in a song. I don't know who did it. I don't think it's your song. But 10 years into a 5-year town. Is that Haley Witters?
I actually said that in an interview a really long time ago, but yeah, it's a 5-year town, but I've been here 10, I think, is something that I had said in a Rolling Stone interview a long time ago. And it's true. People would say that all around. They'd be like, oh, it's a 5-year town. If you haven't done it by this time, then you just might as well move on. And for whatever reason, I say like stubbornness or stupidity. We just kept trying to make it work.
I would use the word determination with a side of stubbornness for sure. But like, you've been at this for a decade. You're in the room with Sony, and they're looking at your record and they're like, yeah, it sounds good. Just tweak this little thing. How close? I know how close I would have been, but how close were you to just saying, okay, let's try it your way? Was it even in the conversation?
Well, there was this label from Memphis that was really, really promising, and I, they had asked me to change a couple things too. I had, of course, Sony. I talk about them asking me to just add different songs and take the fiddles off and all that. But there was a label in Memphis that I really did. I was like, maybe this could work. And then I just was like, no, I'm not changing it. This is stupid. I made the record. I paid for it. It's a good album. And so I'm glad that I held my ground.
I was gonna say, like, when you're at it this long and you just want to get something out of it, it must have been really tempting to say, okay, let's just bend a little bit and then get your foot in the door and then do what you want.
Well, even nowadays, when you have a lot of people that kind of start working with you, and you have a lot of opinions coming in and out at you all the time, I still make sure that I am proud of what I'm doing. And sometimes that means you might miss another opportunity, but all those no's, they led me to Jack White. They led me to Third Man. Had I put this album out with some of the other labels that I really wanted to put it out with, I just don't think it would have had the same reaction because, I mean, Third Man had historically never put out a country artist. And, they had really never done a full artist deal up until that point. And so I think about that every time now when somebody wants me to compromise on something. I'm like, no, that's what got me here in the first place was by sticking to my guns and being who I am. So it taught me the hard way.
Uh, it's weird, but I'm thinking about a Garth Brooks song called "Unanswered Prayers."
I like Garth Brooks.
I
Man.
like Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
Are there any points where you look back at like the waypoints on your career and just look back and like, man, I'm glad what I wanted at that point didn't happen then?
Well, for sure. Like that label I was saying that turned me down because they said, I'm sorry, we already have 2 females on the label. And they shall remain nameless. They're actually out of Georgia. And they've done a better job of getting more women on their label since that moment. So it's great to see people kind of opening their eyes and changing. But I 100%, like I said, had I signed to that, I just don't think that the album would have took off like wildfire, like Third Man. Yeah, that was all kismet. It was meant to be.
Yeah, and it's a place where you can be a square peg in a round hole kind of town. And in the process of trying to get all of you here, I started describing you as country music artist. And after like a week of seeing that back at me in emails and on posters, I was like, that's not really accurate.
I'm difficult to describe,
yeah.
But
it takes a while to cover all of it,
Yeah. And I really, it's just, even with this new album that I have coming out in January, it's not a straightforward country record, but it is still a rooted album. It's focused on the songs. Me and my band are playing live in a studio. And, it's just like the White Stripes or like any other band. You're influenced by blues, country, rock, folk. All those things to me they're all the good things. So, and I look at artists like Lucinda Williams. I look at other artists that have also had a hard time being accepted and straddle the line between rock and country. But at the end of the day, it's she just is a lyrical person who writes great songs, and she's found a place to fit in. I mean, thank God for the Americana world coming about, because that's given a lot of us misfits a place to fit in.
Amen. You mentioned and being a woman in a very man's kind of genre, unfortunately. And you came to prominence at a time when a lot of your peers were also finally getting a lot of the recognition that they deserve. Jason Isbell, I think Southeastern had been around for a year or two. Sturgill was coming around, and they seem. This is the bias question. This is, do you think that they got a little bit more juice just by the fact that they're guys singing country music and you're not?
Well, that would be a hard question for me to answer unbiased. But I do think, when I had been working in that town for almost 13 years by the time that I played on Saturday Night Live, and I had a hack blogger who will remain nameless that went on into this whole piece about how I did not deserve to play Saturday Night Live, and that all these other people that they had worked harder, and I think he even specifically mentioned like, oh, Jason Isbell should have done it instead of you. And it's like, well, the booking people from Saturday Night Live came out and they saw us at South by Southwest, and they were blown away, and they asked us to do it. And so, what business do you have?
No?
Yeah. But I have I feel like a lot of times, just, even the way that the press describes things, or the way that things are slanted, it is, I mean, the pay gap exists in all forms. I've had the opportunity at times to. I remember this one promoter had me sign for my money on a list, and I went and I was signing my name, and it had what everybody was making on it. And yeah, let's just say I didn't work with that guy again. But it is difficult out there. But I think that we are finally coming into this time where people are really appreciating hearing women's voices. Of course, country music radio is weighs against us, as we're at 13% of the voices that you hear on there are female. And back in Loretta Lynn's day, it was at 13.7%. So we've actually went down, which is unbelievable. But there are spaces that are supporting us. And I just think having conversations about it, although however awkward and annoying they might be, like, I don't want to be talking about that. I would rather have to not talk about it at all. But unfortunately, that's where we are.
What was after the whole 5-year process of writing this book and editing it, what part are you the most proud of?
What part am I most proud of the book? I don't know if there's any one specific moment, but I think just being able to be truthful to who I am and have that be a common thread and let people know the things that I've struggled with, the things I still struggle with today, whether it's body image or my insecurity with my looks or my problems with substance abuse, whatever they might be. Um, I'm in a really good place right now, and I just want to be able to share all that with people so they know that they're not alone.
And since you mentioned it, it really struck me that on page 12 of this book, you said, "I knew I need to quit drinking." When you quit drinking, page 265.
Yeah, exactly. It took a really long time to learn some of those lessons. And I remember having a conversation on the phone during deep COVID with my editor, Naomi Huffman, and I was still drinking at this point, by the way. And a therapist, like, poor woman. And she was like, like, whiskey is basically another character in this book. And I was like, that's scary, but that's kind of cool. Yeah, I think, also just being able to destigmatize plant medicines, psychedelics, that has been one of my missions, because I think just as I saw Willie Nelson being really vocal about cannabis at a time when it was not cool to do so, I think that those things could really help people. And I think that if we regulated them and taxed them and, made them available to everybody, that it's not all the fear mongering and the war on drugs thing that we have kind of dealt with since the beginning of time.
Anecdotally, Willie's still around. Lots of people that
That's
drank a lot are not.
I know. I mean, I just remember reading that he'd given up the whiskey and the cigarettes, and he just, was smoking some weed. And I mean, man, he's sharp as ever. It's incredible.
I want to hold time for Q&A, and we are going to get to hear you play a couple songs, which I'm super excited about. But my final question is it's the what's next question. It's the what haven't you done yet that you still have to tick the box.
Oh, that's a great question.
What's the next book going to be?
Honestly, I am already thinking about it. I do want to write more books. I would love to write a piece of fiction. I would love to share a lot of stories from the road, meeting my heroes, wild hotel room tales. But again, maybe I should wait for people to die so I don't make my heroes mad and air their dirty laundry or anything. I have been working on a screenplay with a friend of mine. His name's Joshua Weinstein, and he wrote a film called Menasha. And so that's been great. I would love to get into doing like a soundtrack, like Neil Young when he got to do Dead Man or something. And I really am so excited to get back out on the road. I'm going to be in Ann Arbor coming up this winter. Please come see me, the band and I. Thank you. We've not done a headlining tour since 2018. I've just been doing a lot of opening shows, a lot of festivals and stuff. So I can't wait to get back out and play a whole show with my band. And yeah, more stuff like that. I'd like to go back to Europe. I'd like to travel all over and just play music probably till I die.
We've covered a lot of ground here. There's a lot more in the book to cover as well, but I'm curious about what you guys want to know. And normally we have mics in the audience because we've got some of these things set up for audio. I'm just going to repeat the questions for the benefit of the people at the live stream. And now is the point where I remember that if you want to ask a question and you're on the live stream, you can email it to me. Let me check my email really quick. We're going to start with a virtual question from the live stream. I have a question for Margo. Which singer-songwriters influenced you the most?
Oh my goodness. This is a no-brainer. Loretta Lynn, John Prine, Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, John Lennon. The list goes on and on. I mean, Townes Van Zandt.
Were they there from the beginning? Because you write in the book about really discovering classic country well into your career as a performer, or maybe rediscovering is a better way.
Yeah, I mean, it had always been around and kind of been in the house, but I think I was a folkie at first. I was incredibly influenced by Joan Baez, and then I really loved, as far as like people that were more modern, Fiona Apple. When she came on the scene, I just really, really loved what she did, and Jewel as well. That first album, Pieces of You, was a really big one for me. And Lucinda Williams, Car Wheels on a Gravel Road. Jeez, it's the blueprint.
That's a jam. Okay, who's got questions? Right here. Is Roots Radio, are they as great to work with as?
Yes, they are. I love them. I love anybody in Nashville who has the balls to play my songs. They do. They're great people over there.
We did get one spin on TCM this week for you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Shout out to whoever it was.
Yeah. More spins than one. Thank you. Is that you, Carrie?
Hell yeah, you got it.
She's speaking from the country music station here in town, by the way.
I love that. You got it. You got it. I meet Midwestern folks all over the world, the hardest working, most beautiful people that I know. And I am biased.
That's such a good question, because I've always wondered, do you think that you're an Illinoisan, I'm an Illinoisan, there is this bias towards everyone's got to be from Tennessee or Georgia? Do you think there's a bias against people that don't have that original address?
Oh, right. Where it's like, I don't have the street cred or something, and that is, I have had people that try to treat you like that. But then it's like, I'm like, hey, Jesse Coulter's from Arizona, like there's people all over the world enjoy country music and enjoy, just songs with stories. That's all over. It's not just from the South. And I even married a Texan.
Anyone right over here? Process question about writing in coffee shops and how that differs from your songwriting.
Yeah, the songwriting can be like a lot more like spontaneous, and you can like, you can find little times to just kind of work on the song. Like the other day, Jeremy and I, we've been co-writing, even though he's back home. We've been sending each other like little song demos, and I would write a couple verses, and he would write a couple verses. You can find time to do that anywhere. I'm on, like on the plane, I'm in the car, and we're driving along. I'm changing some words, but with the book writing, I felt like I would have to get no distractions and go get in the zone. And I would all the time during COVID, I would be like, I'm gonna have to go get an Airbnb. I gotta go do an edit of my book. So I'm gonna leave for like 2 days. I'll be back. I miss that excuse.
And a lot of that is just kind of like the muscles that you build up as a songwriter. You have the confidence, you've been doing it for a long time, you can, like you said, just write into your phone. But it's hard to switch it on, isn't it? Like when you're doing something that's outside of your normal day-to-day wheelhouse.
Yeah, we just got an assignment to write and record a song within 2 weeks that might be on a movie soundtrack. And it was like, felt like a lot of pressure in a ways, because sometimes you don't know if you're going to be visited by the muse. And like, you don't know if it's going to be good or it could be garbage. Like you write songs all the time that just don't, you know, they don't stand the test of time. And so this is, yeah, it's good. It's good when you can have something like a book where it's like, okay, this, I knew that I had a long deadline to work on it. And even with songwriting, I do try to do it often, because I think it is like a muscle, and if you do it often, you're going to be more practiced, you're going to be sharp on it. So I try to stay on it. Jeremy is a much more committed writer. He gets up and he does write every single day. He always has his guitar out and he's always writing songs.
I relate that to be a very Dolly Parton thing to me, to just get up and just write she wrote, what's the classic story of writing
Jolene and I Will Always Love You in the Same
how
day.
dare she?
That's just like John
How dare
Prine.
that
Like the
happen to
first
somebody?
songs he ever wrote was like, Sam Stone and Donald and Lydia. Like we're not all that lucky. Some of us really have to work at it.
Okay, right here. How do you come up with the music instead of versus the lyrics?
Well, if I can't come up with a good like hooky riff, then I turn the wheel over to Jeremy or my band. I love to get in the studio with them and like really have a song all come together and have everybody throwing in their ideas. I think that we're very diplomatic in the way that if somebody suggests something and we like it, we'll take it. So they definitely have been instrumental in coming up with a lot of those melodies and those lines that they hear, and that's why I keep them around, because they're good at it.
Yeah, go ahead. As a woman trying to break into a predominantly male industry, what are your tips?
Okay, get a firm handshake going. Don't smile all the time. I really believe in coming in with confidence. And I also, in my book, I talk about how I felt like I was trying to book gigs under my own name, and I was emailing people as myself. It was not working. And so I fabricated a manager and a booking agent, and I gave him a very professional name. His name is John Sirota, and he did all of the work for us. It was our greatest heist. Um, and I had a tour manager that was with me for quite a while. Her name was Lauren Spratlin, and she worked with John Prine. She worked with Jason Isbell, and she went by Larry. She literally went by Larry. And then when we'd show up at the venues, she'd introduce, "Hi, I'm Larry." And she's like 4'11". They're like, "You're Larry?" Oh yeah.
That's very that's very marvelous, Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah, you have to figure out how you can use the system, and I would just say too, just confidence, and sometimes I like to wear my hair up high and I wear tall shoes a lot because it makes me taller, makes people look you in the eye, respect you more. But you're already taller than I am, so.
Step one done. Anybody else who back there?
Yes, like I said, the Americana Music Association. I feel like I have some great allyship there with a lot of really wonderful people in the town. I have made a lot of friends, and it's easy to focus on the things that you don't like about something. But I mean, just the friendships that I've made, the band members I've been able to have, because really the level of musicianship is just out of this world. But yeah, God bless the Americana music world. That's been key for me.
Do we have one more? Oh, okay. Let's do two. Let's do you and then the.
Saw him several times.
First, I just have to say that I'm also a Midwestern farmer's daughter, and you're incredibly inspiring to me. But my question is about your book didn't really go into your involvement in Farm Aid. It's a little bit later in the period, but I was just curious to hear a little bit more about your involvement in that and being made a board member and what that has meant to you.
Yes, tell us as a Midwestern farmer's daughter what Farm Aid really means to you.
Yeah, that's been one of the most surreal things that has happened. I mean, I just was so incredibly happy when I got the call to play the concert 6 years ago, and it was the first time that I met Willie, and I got to meet Neil, and obviously they're both just songwriting heroes of mine, and John Mellencamp, and it really felt like a full circle moment. And I try to not to get lost in the accolades and the awards and all the things that go along with the music business, but that was probably the most proud that I've ever been, I think, maybe for my family too. Yeah.
And then
Thank
right
you.
here. What books have had an impact on your life, Margo?
Great question. I obviously I have credited Patti Smith's Just Kids with my wanting to really sit down and do this myself. I've read a lot of musician memoirs. That's like my bread and butter of reading. I've read Ronnie Spector, Be My Baby, Carrie Brownstein, Hunger Makes Me a Modern Girl, Willie Nelson, It's a Long Story. Let's see.
I'm not hearing
Flea.
The Dirt by Motley Crue.
Hey, I read Flea, Children for the Acid. Yeah. Let's see what other ones. I think I credit Patti Smith with the most influential, but big fan of musician memoirs. George Jones is a wild ride if you have not read his memoir. That one's fun too.
Should we play a song or two?
Sure.
Can we?
I'm gonna get my mic back up here, and I'm gonna have to awkwardly tune my guitar for a second, maybe, because. Oh, okay. Good.
Is this the original 58 Gibson that you write about in the book? Is this your?
This is a 65 Gibson.
This is 65.
This is the first thing I bought when Ferdinand gave me my check. Got this. And my mom said, "You should save your money." It's like, "Mom, I need it." I want to dedicate this song to Kim, who I met in the bathroom at the restaurant while I was putting on my eyeliner. We had a nice chat. Okay, I hope this mic doesn't fall. Since you put me down, I've been drinking just to drown. I've been lying through the cracks of my teeth. I've been waltzing with my sin. He's an ugly, evil twin. He's a double-crossing, back-stabbing thief. I killed the angel on my shoulder with the 5th of Evan Williams. When I found out you were never coming home, I killed the angel on my shoulder. Since you left me for another, I've been trying to turn this broken heart to stone. No, darling, I won't speak your name. I hope that you will do the same. But I pray my voice will haunt you above the ground. And if I see your face again, don't consider me your friend. Made me feel like an orphan and act like a clown. I killed the angel on my shoulder with a handle of tequila, so I wouldn't have to spend my nights alone. All alone, I killed the angel on my shoulder. Since you left me for another, I've been trying to turn this broken heart to stone. All the vampires at the bar, they won't ever get too far. They're just sucking all of the good blood out of this town. But I'm an outcast and I'm a stray, and I plan to stay that way. Even if I fall from my grace, I'm gonna land back on the ground. No, I killed the angel on my shoulder with the bottle of the bullet, so I wouldn't have to hear you bitch and moan, moan, moan. I killed the angel on my shoulder. Since you left me for another, I've been trying to turn this broken heart to stone. Said I've been trying to turn this broken heart to stone. Thank you much. Well, I've been doing some Loretta Lynn songs out here on the road since she has moved on to better places. I have a gospel song, and then I have a man-hating song. Well, it's not even that. It's actually just a trash-talking song. I'm gonna do Fist City for you here. You've been making your brags around town that you've been loving my man. But the man I love, when he picks up trash, puts it in a garbage can. That's what you look like to me. And what I see is a pity. You better close your face and stay out of my way if you don't want to go to Fist City. If you don't want to go to Fist City, you better detour around my town. 'Cause I'll grab you by the hair of the head and I'll lift you off of the ground. I'm not saying my baby's the same because he ain't that he won't get around with a kitty. Here to tell you, gotta lay off my man if you don't want to go to Fist City. Come on and tell me what you told my friends if you think you're brave enough. 'Cause I'll show you what a real woman is if you think you hot stuff. You bite off more than you can chew if you get too cute or witty. You better move your feet if you don't want to eat a meal that's called Fist City. If you don't want to go to Fist City, you better detour around my town. 'Cause I'll grab you by the hair of the head and I'll lift you off of the ground. I'm not saying my baby's a saint because he ain't that he won't get around with a kitty. Here to tell you, gotta lay off my man if you don't want to go to Fist City. Here to tell you, gotta lay off my man if you don't want to go to Fist City. Thank you. Loretta Lynn forever. All right, I'll leave you with one more newer song here. And the song was heavily influenced by Patti Smith and psychedelics, I would say. It's called Been to the Mountain. Wrote it with my husband. I got nothing to prove. I got nothing to sell. I'm not buying what you got. I ain't ringing no bells. I got a myth in my pocket. Got a bullet in my teeth. I'm going straight in the fire. I want to talk to the high priest. Used to be a lover, a queen and a drifter, a cowboy, a devil, a bride and a boxer, a pilgrim and a thief, but it was me underneath. I just know who I'm not, man, that's alright with me. Alright, alright. Can't tell me nothing, baby, that's a fact. I have been to the mountain and back. Alright. Well, I wish I was God, but I'm glad that I'm not. 'Cause I think too much, got my head in a knot. The world's on fire, better save your brother. I've been a child and I've been a mother. I've been a victim and I've been a tumor. Used to be a waitress, but now I'm a consumer. I've been on food stamps, I'm out of my mind. I rolled in dirty dollars, stood in the welfare line. I've been a number, I've been under attack. I have been to the mountain and back. Alright. Alright. I've been a dancer, a saint, an assassin. I've been a nobody, a truck driver, shaman. So many seasons that I've been adrift. Sometimes I wonder if I even exist. You ever walk down the street and do you think to yourself, am I being watched, man? Am I on the list? Yeah. I've been called every name in the book. Honey, go on, take your best shot. Take your best shot. Take your best shot. Now I got my back turned, honey. Aim in my heart. Go on, take your best shot now. I am the hunter and I am the hunted. I am a baby unwanted. I'm an alchemist teacher, I'm a sinner, I'm a preacher. And I know it's more out here than this as I stare in the void of the black magic vacuum. I know the scent of death like a perfume. No, this ain't the end. This ain't the end, this ain't the end, this ain't the end. No. Take off your tight eyes, undress your holy thighs, 'cause I have been to the mountain. I have been to the mountain. I have been to the mountain. I have been to the mountain and back. Alright, alright. Can't tell me nothing, baby, that's a fact. I have been to the mountain and back. Alright. You alright? Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.